Hello, good afternoon to everyone from the editorial board of the BuildUp portal. For those attending a BuildUp webinar for the first time, we are very glad to welcome you. For our returning audience, thank you for renovating your interest. This slide to briefly recall what the BuildUp portal is. BuildUp is a collaborative platform in the field of energy efficiency in buildings. It is continuously updated and represents a key source of information on the topic of energy efficiency. You can register and become a member of the community, which allows you to upload news, events, present case studies, results from a project, and so on. We also invite you to simply navigate the portal. In the Learn section, you will find all the podcasts of the past webinars, so it is possible to listen and see previous presentations. At the end of this webinar, the link to the full presentation and PDF deck of slides will be made available in this section of the portal. You can find upcoming webinars in the calendar of the Events section. Now, it is a pleasure to host today's webinar entitled Green Homes Go Mainstream, organized by Smarter Finance for Families H2020 Project Consortium. I would like to invite you all to contribute and participate in this webinar. You can type and send your questions in the dedicated box at the right-hand side of the screen. We will bring these questions up and hear the answers from our panel after the presentations. For today's agenda, first we'll hear from Steven Bornkamp, coordinator of the Smarter Finance for Families project, who will introduce the project and discuss the Green Homes, Green Mortgages program. Then we'll hear from Laura Houston from Sustainability Works, sharing about the Irish experience with Smarter in the case for finance providers. Then we will hear from Sanela Klaric from the Bosnia and Herzegovina Green Council, addressing Smarter experience with the topic of trust and partnership for health. Then, from the Polish Green Building Council, Ania Jurczak, she will share on her views on the experience in Poland with Smarter, with the road to implementation of the green homes and green mortgages. Then, at the end, we will have our Q&A sessions, where we expect to offer good answers to your questions. Now, to get started, please, Steven, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Camilo, and good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the chance to speak and to tell you a little bit about a project that we're all very excited about. I'm going to basically go through an explanation of first the rationale of why we started a Green Homes, Green Mortgage program, and then go into how programs work, and then talk more about this Horizon 2020 grant that enables us to replicate this to 11 new countries. And so just very brief background on the program. In about 2007 in Romania, we thought of the idea that we wanted to align mortgages, special mortgages that would support green homes with discounted finance. The argument being the buyer would have more money in their pocket to pay the mortgage would be less risky, and the bank could provide a discount. As you know, from 2007-2008 timeframe, that was an interesting time for green renaissance, but also right before the housing crisis and the general financial crisis. So our program was delayed a bit, but fortunately it gave us some time to really think through the project and think the program and what we wanted to do and create it. So we really effectively got going around 2011, 2012 to start signing up projects and banks, and I'll tell you all about that very shortly. But just some rationale. This is a building site that could really be anywhere in the world. Obviously, it's an unprofessional building site You could probably, just from a safety perspective and quality perspective and organizational perspective, notice a number of flaws. And this is obviously a single family home, but this could apply to more professional developments, larger scale developments. But what we see here is a project where the owners are probably doing it themselves or using friends and family, maybe not the best materials, the best knowledge. And Romania happens to be in a seismic zone, and using a lot of concrete is not a good idea if you don't know what you're doing. So this raises just a number of problems, even from basic safety, let alone energy efficiency. As you can see, the rebar there is exposed to the elements, which can basically, before the building is finished, it can start having problems. So this again, this can be a number of sites. Here's some electric work. Again, needs to be done by a qualified electrician, but perhaps in this case it isn't. Creating again safety issues, but also a lot of missed opportunity. So this is maybe a more extreme example, but I think it's a good example of when we don't invest properly at the beginning. The project you're seeing now, this was one of the first projects of villas that we certified in our program, and obviously the quality difference is pretty evident. But importantly, this project creates 2 mortgage payments worth of energy savings per year relative to a non-green building, to a standard building in the same area. I would even argue we're being conservative. In some of the buildings around it are so inefficient, maybe even three mortgage payments. So this is obviously beneficial for the homeowner, but also very beneficial for the bank financing, because the homeowner obviously has an easier time making effectively 9 to 10 payments of mortgage per month or per year versus doing having to make all 12 payments. So this is obviously better for the bank's perspective, and we'll talk about what that means. So really what our program is comparing is responsible borrowing versus poor construction. None of us should borrow more money than we need, but if we avoid borrowing, which then causes us to construct buildings poorly, then we create a bigger problem. And for those in the building industry, it's quite obvious, but there's really only one best time to invest in your home, which is, of course, in the beginning. And to do that, of course, it takes resources. And that is the gift of finance, where finance brings those resources early into the process when you don't have them yourself, and in exchange for an interest rate, which is effectively a mortgage. So this is really what we're looking at, is bringing forward the proper amount of resources early into the building process. And I say often that I believe very strongly that the finance industry going forward can really be some of our heroes of the sustainability movement, if they can align their the ability to provide finance with a vision that supports sustainability. And so also human beings are notoriously irrational. We know that we should be saving money as early as possible, but we don't do it. We often make short-term decisions. So one of the ways we want to motivate people to do things is to turn long-term benefits, such as having an energy efficient house that you think may pay off over the years, but turn those into immediate benefits that you see from the very first month you own your house. And also to match the monthly investment that you have to make for those benefits into monthly benefits. And that's really what a mortgage does, because you're borrowing the bank's money, building a better house than you could probably do without their money. But you get the benefits of that house, not only from a comfort, quality perspective, but from a financial perspective, from the very first month that you own your house. So that's a lot of what our program does, is it turns these benefits into immediate benefits, and I'll explain a little bit more, and that's the mortgage. A very important concept as well I think this is, in a way, it's obvious, but it's also, it doesn't seem to drive behavior all the time, is that when you borrow money to buy a home, the mortgage payment is only one of the costs. It is, of course, probably the biggest cost, but energy, health, repair costs are very important. I'll talk about energy in just a moment, but important to know, health is one of the #1 reasons people go bankrupt. Their health or a family member's health is often, can be significant enough to cause them to be unable to pay for their home or their other obligations. And so that's extremely important, particularly from a bank's perspective. If you have 10,000 mortgages in a portfolio and you're financing healthy homes versus toxic homes, that will make a difference financially and, of course, from a social perspective. Repair costs are also very significant. Romania, like many countries in Europe, has some extreme weather where you have a rainy season followed by winter, which is freezing and unfreezing, 20 cycles, perhaps more, over the course of the winter, which can absolutely destroy a building. So that's obviously bad if you're a homeowner, but also if you're the bank financing that home. Either the homeowner has to make costly repairs that compete with their ability to repay the mortgage, or they don't make the repairs and the value of the asset falls. So all of this creates risk for the bank. And it's something that's very important. So, all of this, I think, makes logical sense. So if this is the case, then where are the green mortgages? Why aren't people doing this? And I say this, probably it's best described as really it's a systemic problem. It's all of the stakeholders. You have the banks on the left, the developer on the right, us as a Green Building Council trying to promote this at the bottom, and the citizens on the top. It's a systemic problem. Everybody is waiting for everybody else to start. Developers won't build if they don't think there's a demand. Banks won't create products if they don't think there's projects that this can finance. Citizens won't ask for it if they don't know about it. So it's really a systemic problem. And we wanted to approach this, but in a way that really puts the citizen first, because at the end of the day, it's going to be people asking for green mortgages and greener homes that's going to drive the market. Regardless what developers do and what banks do, the end consumer is the one who's really driving demand. So, and this is obviously very important also from a social perspective. So this is where we lead into the concept and to talk about how the program actually works. Depending on your screen size, this may be a bit difficult to read, but this is in the toolkit, which I'll explain where you can find shortly. But this is basically the program itself. On the top left, we have a bank which offers discounted mortgages due to the fact that the mortgages are less risky for them. This allows the project developer on the bottom left build a better quality, greener project, knowing that buyers will have financial resources to purchase those homes. The home buyer on the bottom right, they receive lower monthly payments and able to take a larger mortgage. At the same time, they get lower energy costs and health and repair costs. And so they get a better quality home for less money per month than a poor quality home. And then us, I would, as the certifier, the nonprofit organization that's promoting green construction, we get a big benefit in that we have more compliant homes. And we provide to the rest assurance that the projects will actually meet those goals. So, so we look at a number of criteria. Obviously, energy efficiency is very important in promoting green energy. There we utilize the energy performance certificate in the local market, but also we add some non-energy criteria: construction waste mitigation, managing the site responsibly, indoor air quality, healthy materials that are not only healthy for the occupants, but also sustainably resourced, that they're not, the use of those materials are not damaging the local environment. We're citing projects where they have walkable districts or good access to public transportation or both, many different things, and bioclimatic design principles. So this is what we look at, which again will be in this toolkit that you can review very carefully, the actual criteria. This is the toolkit itself. It's in multiple languages. This is the Romanian version, but we have a version in English. Therefore, when we certify a housing project, we then indicate to the bank that it's eligible to receive a discounted mortgage. And this is one of our partner banks, our first partner bank, Raiffeisen Bank, which is quite active in Central and Eastern Europe. I will start with the disclaimer that this is, of course, not a financial offer. If you actually want to get a mortgage, you'll need to see their latest mortgage rates had actually fallen a bit in the last months. But I wanted to just provide this to give you an example of how the program works. So we have the two discounted rates, the standard rate on the bottom and the green mortgage, on the left, and the green mortgage on the right. So it's quite a substantial difference in the mortgage itself. And if we compare two projects, you have the sales price of a B-class rated apartment, which is not particularly energy efficient. And there's about a 7% difference in the cost between that and the Green Homes qualified apartment in our model here. That's 7,000 euros. 5,000, about 7% higher, but about 6,000 euros higher. That's a lot of money in design and construction that can go to improve the house. The loan amount is slightly higher for the Green Homes qualified apartment, but with a discounted rate, you're actually paying less in the mortgage payment before the energy savings is calculated. When we add in the energy savings, now we have a much lower cost of monthly ownership of what the homeowner must pay. And I'm excluding health cost and repair cost in this calculation, just to be conservative. But what's important here is that even without a substantial discount from the bank, that's quite a significant difference. The quality of the home is much better for the home on the right than the home on the left. So even setting those two numbers equal I believe would drive consumers to choose the green qualified home. So it's really a matter of education and informing the market. This is another partner bank of ours, Alpha Bank in Romania. They did a national television campaign to promote our partnership, which I think was very effective. We have about, this number is growing actually quite fast now, and we have about 40 projects total, most of them multifamily residential apartments. About 10,000 apartments are either certified or with agreements to be certified, and that represents about 1.4 billion euros worth of project value. It's across Romania, Cluj, Iași, Bucharest, Brașov, those are major cities, but it's really a national program across the country. I won't go into details here just because we have this information in the toolkit, but here's one of the projects. It's actually a completed project, very nice project. And importantly, the developer of this has agreed to certify all of their projects within our program. And I think they've got about 7 so far that we've been working on with them, and they're very successful, both in achieving the green targets and selling the units. Another developer who this was one of their first green projects, and now they've done some even larger greener projects in Romania. So this is really another sort of strategic partnership where we are certifying all of their units. And I think this is an indication that they're satisfied that the program brings them value as a developer and investor. Forte Partners, another premier builder in Romania, both with offices but also residential, and they're certifying all their residential through our Green Homes Green Mortgage program. And I want to switch now to talk a bit about the Smarter Finance for Families program. This is, we are very fortunate to receive a grant from the European Commission Horizon 2020 program to replicate this to 11 new countries. And these are partners across Europe, as far west as Ireland, as far east as Georgia, a lot of Central and Eastern European countries, but also including Italy. So we have, let's say, a very substantial part of Europe. It's about 300 million citizens living in these countries, and we're implementing, and you'll hear from Poland and Bosnia and Herzegovina today about their experiences. And we now have toolkits that I mentioned in all of the languages of these countries. Here's just some quick examples. We have it in English and local languages. They've also been adapted to one of the big parts of the project was to research and adapt each of these toolkits and their programs locally so that they could be, there'd be some commonality in approach, but at the same time, they would be locally relevant, following local laws and building traditions, etc. We also had a lot of communications. This is just one. We're advertising the healthy and clean air inside the building. And this was actually a growing and important topic before the pandemic. You can imagine now people stuck in their homes and appreciating the importance of indoor air quality is becoming even more important. So we think we have the right homes for the right time. I also want to talk about sort of why I think the programs are going to grow very substantially in this next phase of Europe as Green Deal is launched. The pandemic stimulus response is very clearly oriented around having to build back green. Very quickly, each of these could be its own presentation, but just to talk about some different things, the taxonomy levels, the network for greening financial system development loans. The taxonomy, very briefly, is the effort to indicate whether different economic activities can be considered green or not green in the world of green finance. And the European Union's done a very good job of putting this into law in June of this year. And buildings are, of course, included. And what this has done is this has set some clear targets of what things have to actually achieve. This is something where we believe in our program, the projects that we certify line up very, very carefully and very well against this framework. So this has really started to drive the interest of retail banks and other institutions into really understanding what are the projects they finance? Are they really eligible to be considered green? So this has been really a big help for us in opening up discussions with a number of banks. Levels, I should say the taxonomy has not only energy efficiency requirements, but something called do no significant harm as an objective, so that you should pursue energy efficiency, green energy, but not to the detriment of the environment in other ways. And this is where we believe Levels, which was an initiative founded by the Director General of Environment, the European Commission. It's a framework for looking at green building rating systems and determining are they doing the things they should be doing. And this is where we, again, score very highly. Things such as life cycle assessment, looking at the embodied energy, not just the operational energy. Levels supports this. This is something that we're doing in our certifications. So this is something where we believe we can use this framework to demonstrate to the finance industry that working with us, they're automatically achieving these important objectives. And this network for greening the financial system, this is effectively European central banks primarily, but many other banks around the world. It's a partnership of them and some other relevant regulatory institutions, international development banks, that basically are saying that the retail banking industry, or the banking industry in general, finance industry, needs to do a better job of including climate risk in their reporting and also in the products that they offer. So this is coming from the top to all of our banking partners, that this is something that they really need to take very seriously, and we're starting to see a lot of questions, a lot of interest from banks. And this was started before the pandemic, and I think with the need and the indication of the green stimulus aligning very firmly around green, I think it's only going to grow. So these are some really important trends that are really supporting what we're doing here. And the last point is development loans. Our program was originally started around the idea of a borrower borrowing from a bank to buy a home. Of course, developers also have to take loans to do their project. So that's, I think, an area that we can also fit in very nicely, and we're starting to have discussions with our banking partners in that we can provide discounted finance to the developer to build the project at a discount for exactly the same reasons. It is less risky to build a green home development, and therefore the bank can reduce the cost of borrowing. That's an obvious incentive to the developer and investors who can receive those loans. And really, the process from our perspective is quite the same. We still go through the exact same process to certify the projects. So I think this is something also that I think we're going to see a lot of development in the coming months. That's my prepared comments. I'm happy to answer your questions towards the end of all of the panelists' discussions. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Laura Houston from Sustainability Works for her presentation.
Thanks, Stephen. I'll just check that this is working out. Great. Yeah. So my name's Laura Houston. I'm a co-founder of Sustainability Works, which is a sustainability consulting firm in Ireland. And I specialize in sustainable finance. So unlike the other presenters here today, I'm not from a Green Building Council. And really a lot of the work that I do sits in that space between sustainability people and sustainability experts, I would say, and finance experts, and really sitting in that space between them and trying to translate from one to the other. So I got involved with the Irish Green Building Council in relation to the Smarter project that Stephen has just given such a good overview on. And my role really was to help them prepare a deck and a presentation for the Irish banks, the Irish retail banks, to get them on board in terms of doing something similar to what has happened in Romania, i.e. some kind of a partnership or arrangement whereby they would give a discounted mortgage for a green home that has been certified in line with the Irish equivalent of the Romanian certification, which is called the Home Performance Index. So my role was really sitting down with Joanna Varghese of the Irish Green Building Council and understanding, and my initial piece of work was like literally to understand, okay, can you explain to me what the difference is between an energy efficient home and a green home? So I'm very much not coming from the space where I'm an expert in green building. So, but really that was literally the first step, working out what was that difference and what exactly were we basically trying to sell to the banks in terms of, these are the types of homes that we want you to get behind and give a discounted mortgage for. And then once I understood that side of it, then the next side of it was really to look at all the trends that have been happening in sustainable finance policy and in sustainable finance markets, to come up with what was the best business case that we could present to a bank. Because really, when you're talking to banks or any organization, any corporate organization, for-profit organization, no matter how environmentally or socially aware they are, no matter how much of a sustainable business they are in fact or say they are, everything still comes down to, will this activity that you are asking them to get involved in, will this new business line or business opportunity, will it make a profit, and will it continue to make sustainable long-term profits? And really, so everything, when we were looking at the business case for a bank, we were trying to look at it from all angles as to what could encourage them to get involved, and I'll take you through that as well. We then met with the banks, and I'll talk to you about our approach to that, and then we're still in discussion with the banks. The RoGBC is still in discussion with the banks in terms of getting them involved. But I'll just give you a bit more feedback on, I suppose, potential challenges that I guess we hadn't necessarily expected, but, you know, potential challenges that came up during discussions with the banks that are really insightful in terms of trying to get other banks or finance providers on board. So the first thing I did, I'm obviously not going to bring you through all of these, but I suppose this is really the first thing I did with Joanna. I needed to understand what's the difference between an energy efficient home and a green certified home. And I suppose the key thing is that in Ireland, all homes now are built to NZEB standards already, and they've been up at quite a high energy efficiency standard for quite a period of time. So at the moment, all homes are built to an A2 BER rating. So really, when you're saying you're giving a discounted loan for an A2 rated home, it's really you're giving a discounted mortgage for a new home. And I suppose I really wanted to understand, what does a green certified home means that goes beyond that, that makes it something more green than just simple energy efficiency. And I think that's really a key point for anyone from, and on any project I'm working with, I always say to the sustainability experts involved, like that's a key point. Don't assume that the finance providers know what you're talking about. Generally, you know, you really need to, sometimes they will be all over it, and they would tell you what a green certified home is before you can, but or some other sustainability, some other sustainable investments, but never assume it. You know, if they know it, you can just whiz through it and that's fine. But it's always good just to have it on paper. You know, I suppose I come from a finance background myself. I like things kind of set out and rationalized. So it's nearly just helpful just to put it down on paper. Listen, this is what we're talking about from a sustainability perspective. So nothing to do with the finance side of it. So really, we went through, you know, what a green certified home is then, and in Ireland what we're talking about is a home that has a home performance index seal of approval, and this is a specific certification that is being developed by the Irish Green Building Council, and as Stephen referred to there, it's a certification that effectively future-proofs Irish homes by ensuring that they're aligned with the Paris Agreement targets on climate change. And of course, energy efficiency is one of the criteria. And you know, this picture is I suppose the fuller picture that Stephen just referred to a few minutes ago. But I suppose this really explains what the difference is. So in addition to the requirement, which is already under building regulations, that an Irish new build must reach an energy performance rating of A2 or higher, so a very, very high standard of energy performance. There are criteria within the Green Home certification that say that it has to be connected location, so it has to be close to transport facilities to reduce the use of fossil fuel transport or private transport. It has to be, you know, different requirements around health and well-being and air quality. It has to be location away from flood risk plains, and it should be a lifetime adaptable home that can be adapted, you know, for a family as they grow and shrink. And in relation to the environmental side of it, you know, that additionally you'd be looking at things like embodied carbon and in particular construction quality. And that's actually definitely a key thing in relation to this certification, that the fact that the developers are involved, you know, in taking these criteria into account right from the start, which means that really you're only getting the highest quality developers involved. So this chart we just put forward because I suppose, you know, there's often a lot of talk about these different things that are so familiar to people in the green building world, NZEB or passive house, you know, and bankers will have, finance providers will have heard of those, and they may know a lot about them, but I suppose we just wanted to compare, listen, this is what the Home Performance Index does compared to those other certifications or standards, just so they're aware of the, I suppose, the incremental benefits that are brought by having a Home Performance Index certified home. And then this was really just focusing in on the carbon emissions side of things. So literally to explain, because sometimes it's hard to understand if you're not in it all the time, that, you know, you could have, especially in Ireland, we've lots of one-off homes in rural locations, and very often those homes are very big because they've been built out the country and the cost would be lower to build in terms of land, but they might be built on someone's own land. And so those may be A-rated, so they're, you know, the absolute best energy efficiency performance standard, but still the carbon emissions associated with them on an absolute basis are going to be higher than those associated with an HPI certified home. Basically simply because it's bigger, so that, you know, there's going to be more absolute carbon emissions from it, unless it's I suppose on electric heat pump and sourced by renewable energy, but also simply because of the fact that, you know, there may not be public transport links. That home might need 2 private cars and people traveling back and forth from that home, and therefore the increased CO2 emitted from that. And similarly, just looking at the carbon, embodied carbon within the home, you know, that isn't necessarily something that, you know, certainly I would have thought about before, this idea of embodied carbon within the construction methods used and products used to actually build a home. So really just to pull out those points and make it really clear to any finance provider that's picking up, you know, this Home Performance Index certification just fresh, just so that they understand, okay, I get, you know, they really understand how much better this is than a simple energy performance standard. So once, I suppose, so that like just took myself and Joanna going back and forth and me asking questions saying, okay, so we kind of felt like, okay, we'd set that out and we'd set out how much, you know, more amazing and better this Home Performance Index certification is. And then it was on to what's the business case for a bank to do this? Because as I said, they're not going to do it for the good of their health. It needs to be a sustainable, profitable business activity for them. So I've listed here, so we literally went, and there's lots of international experience. There's amazing work done by the EMF Energy Efficiency Mortgage Initiative, all around the business case for energy efficiency mortgages. But I suppose in developing the business case for a bank to go that one step further and look for HPI certification, it's really the same factors that would be involved. And so we pulled together all the factors that we could find, literally everything. So from commercial reasons, which could include customer demand for HPI certification. It could include that the bank would have first mover advantages that would be aligned with the direction of policy travel on building regulations, the tightening and more greening of building regulations. It could include any of those issues around commercial, the lower risk of default that Stephen referred to. And similarly, it could include a regulatory push. So from, Stephen referred to this as well, so from the central banks and supervisors that are seeing climate risk as a financial risk, and the concern that particularly has been drawn to it by Mark Carney and the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, that climate risk is a risk to global financial stability. As a result of all of that work, the Network for Greening the Financial Systems that Stephen referred to has been set up, and they're really talking about climate stress testing mortgage books and loan books of banks. And they're also looking for more climate disclosures by banks. We'll talk about that a bit more. And then there is this idea of a green supporting factor that has been brought in under the EU Sustainable Finance Action Plan. And basically what that means is that banks will be required to keep less capital for green lending. So it's really to encourage banks to do more green lending, because basically it will cost them less to lend to make green loans, which means their profits will go up. So that would be another regulatory push, really a carrot that would encourage banks to do more in the green mortgage space. And then simply reputational factors. So to be seen to be doing something on sustainability and climate action. There's also these principles of responsible banking, which have been developed and many of the banks have signed up to. And that's about banks really setting targets and reporting and disclosing around what they are doing in relation to responsible banking. And a product like this could be something that would fall in very neatly within their reporting requirements under that. And then simply brand benefits around customer attraction and retention and talent attraction and retention. You know, that, you know, all these millennials, we hear it again and again, everyone wants to work for a company with purpose. And it's, you know, you can have brand benefits from getting involved with something like this. So I suppose, you know, Stephen went through some particular factors there in relation to the Romanian housing market that impacted how they went around the business case for banks. In Ireland, we have a very different set of facts. So we have a housing crisis here. Ever since the property bubble burst back in the early 2000s, sorry, in the 2010s, we have had a, you know, construction dropped. We've had a lag in construction, and we've had tightening loan to value and loan to income limits in Ireland. So those are limits that are imposed by the central bank. So basically, what I'm trying to say to you is, in Ireland, people just want a home. They want a house. It doesn't necessarily have to be green or any other color. Really, their driving thing is that they want a home that they can afford at a price that the bank will give them a mortgage for. They're, you know, in terms of customer demand, it's probably less relevant here in an Irish market at the moment. So what we felt, you know, looking at all of this, myself and the RoGBC, was that it was more likely that the push for a bank to get involved in this project would be because of the other drivers and reasons for the business case for green mortgages. So that, as well as having the head of mortgages at the table when you're talking to them about this project, that it would be helpful to have, you know, people from risk, people from treasury, people from their marketing or brand department, or from the sustainable finance department, rather than just the mortgages people who may say, well, listen, we're just not seeing the customer demand. And really, that's just to appeal to all of the business drivers that are there. Stephen has already mentioned this, but I'll just highlight it again. The Energy Efficiency Mortgages Initiative. Really, what we wanted to do initially was, with everything we were presenting to the bank in this presentation, was to say, listen, you know, the business case is already there for energy efficient mortgages. So discounted green mortgages based on the energy efficiency on the home. You know, there's lots of work has been done on it. You know, banks all over the world are launching green mortgages linked to energy efficiency. So, you know, the business case there is done and dusted, basically. But what we're looking for is for banks to go one step further. So in the next few slides, I really put forward for the bank the business case for just pure energy efficient mortgages. And then after that, I want to take it up another step and say, okay, now, in addition to everything that you get for a discounted mortgage for an energy efficient home, we're going to we're going to, you know, add in additional benefits that you get from a green home. So we went through each of the commercial drivers, and I've got a lot of detail in there that'll be available afterwards on the slide, but really looking at all those commercial drivers, the regulatory drivers, and the reputational drivers that would encourage banks to get involved on the project. And then we went to see, okay, what does using the HPI certification do for you in addition? And really, we found that there were 6 elements. First, that it would future-proof their mortgage book for climate stress testing. And this is because the definition of a green home under the EU Sustainable Finance Taxonomy, it currently just relates to energy efficiency, but going forward is going to include all the other elements that are required under levels. That is the direction of travel. So by aligning with the HPI index, it meant that they were future-proofing their mortgage book for climate stress testing. We were able to point to a couple of reports that referred to an enhanced increase in property value over and above just pure energy efficiency, and therefore an enhanced ability of a borrower to service the mortgage, and reports that showed even lower probability of mortgage default for truly green homes. And then we also tried to highlight the competitive advantage for a bank, because they'd be partnering with the most reputable home builders and property developers, and that they would, and also that they would be partnering with a very trusted partner in the Irish Green Building Council. So we went through all those, we literally set it out for them just to make the business case for them so that they would have it and it would all be very clear for them. We then met with the banks. What we did first was we went through the trade association. So there's a trade representative body. We did a big presentation for them, which went out to all of the retail banks in Ireland. And then we had individual meetings with banks after them. And this is the last slide. So really just some of the feedback after the meetings, like, you know, for other countries that are thinking of doing something similar. So really the big thing the banks are interested in is the scale of the opportunity. That to do anything from an IT systems perspective in a bank is hugely expensive. And to launch a new product and develop a new product and do everything they need to do around that, it's hugely expensive. So they need to know the scale of the opportunity. So they were asking us questions about, well, how many homes in Ireland will have this HPI certification, you know, now, today, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. They want to know how many, you know, what's the mortgage lending opportunity that they're dealing with. They're also concerned about reputational risk from partnering with, you know, either the RoGBC on this project or with particular developers. You know, from a banking perspective, you always have to be concerned about reputational risk. What if something goes wrong with these homes? How would it reflect badly on you? I think there's a lot that the HPI certification has to add, given the high standards involved. Always concerned about data sharing, you know, particularly given GDPR. And there was one point that we hadn't really thought about, which was if they have a pre-existing energy efficient mortgage product, it's clearly a challenge to think about, okay, where does this fit in on top of that? Do we have to give an additional incremental discount over the energy efficiency mortgage, or how do we deal with it? So that was an interesting point that came up, and sometimes a reticence to be a first mover. And obviously COVID has impacted everything and slowed everything down. But at the moment, discussions are still ongoing with banks in Ireland. There are a number that are interested in getting involved in the project, so it's very positive. And really, it's just around next steps. So with that, I will leave the floor and hand on to. I'll be here for questions at the end, but I'll hand on to Sanela Klaric of the Green Council in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you, Laura. I would like to say hello to all of you. I will continue now with the topic about this smarter grid project in Bosnia and Herzegovina, about trust and partnership for health. My name is Sanela Klaric. I'm architect by profession. I'm professor on the International Boruč University, and also I'm in Green Building Council in Bosnia and Herzegovina since 2010. Next. Green Building Council is an association that actually gathered motivated, educated and skilled individuals for last 10 years, discussing the similar topics like Stephen and Laura was talking about. What we did is that we actually decided not only to talk, but also to have the examples about nearly zero energy building with all these elements that we discussed before. It wasn't an easy job because we also was focused very much about local economy, and we want to search how much we could use of the local sources and local materials, and also the humans and peoples in Bosnia, because you know the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, nothing is positive, and the most word that we use here, we cannot. But we want, as very young NGO since 2010, we want to actually use we can as much as we could, and it's possible. Because those topics are quite new by the legislations in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we are harmonized with the legislations in EU from 2011. So we are much behind than maybe any other countries in the region. But from the other side, we have many creative people and people who really trust and who actually are very much focused on the health issues. So we decided actually to map those people and to actually map those partners and start to work with them. That's the reason why since 2010 now we have more than 100 local and international partners. You could see some of our video materials on the YouTube to actually get more information about this project Student Pavilion that we built in Bosnia. Next. So this is just to show you how much partners do we have and to show you that they are coming actually from different fields. They are coming from different donor communities, but also the businesses, industry in Bosnia and Herzegovina, international industry and businesses in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They do have offices. Some innovative companies, some startups that are actually created here with us during our work, but also international universities and research centers who are helping us all together actually to be smarter and to be stronger. Next. And why is important to actually have all those partners in the country like Bosnia and Herzegovina, but in any other countries in Europe? It is very, very important to understand this product adaptation curve. When you really have something innovative, and these changes in the building sector are very innovative. We are really moving much forward than the current practices are, especially here in my country. Then it's really hard, and you really need much more time than you are talking when you are talking about common issues. So about innovative approach to the building sector and all those measures that we are actually thinking about with very holistic approach and many topics that you have to achieve, not only energy efficiency, but waste management, site resources planning, renewable energy sources, materials, carbon footprint, everything else. It's not really easy, but also it's very much innovative to that. So that's important why in this process, we actually firstly gathered people who are very innovative, very creative in their businesses, and early adopters to talk with them. Next. So the partnership for innovation is really very important for us. And we decided to gather partners. It wasn't an easy job because it's really required a lot of time to gather all of them and to actually work together. But more than one voice for changes and innovation is very important. And that's the reason why we really spend a lot of time to gather our partners. We also had joint projects. So all projects that we are implementing in Bosnia and Herzegovina and region, somehow we try to involve all our partners together. Then we make the networking between them, so to join promotion our work and efforts. It is a very interdisciplinary approach, so we did a lot of research to find some innovators in our country who are dealing with some innovative products, so that we could actually help them to promote and to offer in different projects. And this actually made us with common interest for strong and healthy society. And of course, it is important how to communicate. So when we recognize people who are thinking in advance, we actually approach them and we ask them to be our partners. Next. The trust. The new capital for the 21st century. We know how much it's hard to actually develop the trust and how much you really need to work on your credibility. Once you made a wrong move, you could actually really destroy the trust. But the trust is the driving force that we use here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We build the trust based on the common interest and the transparency. Joint projects help us really to talk with those people and to continue to work with them. And common belief and initiative for strong and healthy society. We test that on the way that it wasn't only us who invited our partners for new projects. We tested on the way that by the years, we actually got many invitations from them because they realized in the years that we are very competent in our work. So they now starting to invite us for some new innovative or projects. Even we have some associations on the starting position who are actually inviting us to lead them in the process to grow. Next. Health. This is also very important driving force, and nobody could actually say that health is not important, especially now with this pandemic time. Health is more important in any countries, but in Bosnia and Herzegovina, after the war that we had in 1992, 1995, health is something that you could always work on. But that's the reason why, even when we're talking about buildings, we involved also people from the medicine sector. And this is something that I will also advise each of the partners in this project, but many other projects, to really have and work with different fields together, and then to discuss these healthy issues. So this is really about healthy earth, citizens, cities, buildings, innovations and innovatives, but common value. And how to communicate, it's very important. This project, smarter projects, actually help us a lot to get some support and to get some other experience in these 12 countries to talk about that and help us actually to ensure us that we are on the good path. Next. So the first partner that we actually have is the partner that we working with since 2014. They were involved in all our projects, starting with Student Pavilion that you saw, but also project energy efficiency in building as a basic for achieving sustainable socio-economic growth in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because this company is actually very much focused on renovation and reconstructions, and they are working with the natural materials. Also, they are partner in the Smarter Finance for Families 2011, and they gave us a letter of support. So we didn't stop with that. We actually immediately made the meetings with them. We realized that in this moment they are working on the first design for the office building. So this is the way actually how we use that partnership, the trust that we already have, and they believe in natural materials and health. So this is the client with whom we actually signed the contract. Next. Of course, we didn't talk only with them. After the first presentation of the projects that we have in the Chamber of Commerce, we also used the links with the Association of the Architects, Chamber of Commerce, of the Engineers, to discuss with many people, sometimes independently just sitting around the desk, sometimes making really many of the meetings together. But again, you will recognize that from those projects that are in the pipeline, you will recognize that actually they are coming from our partners since 2010. Colleagues with whom we are working on the different summer schools and the workshops, like Roditeljska kuća with normal architecture, or Amir Vukzec, who was always with us on many occasions. But also it is very interesting that many of those architecture offices, they actually, when they have been approached with some new clients searching for passive houses or nearly zero energy houses, they are actually coming to us because they recognize Green Building Council Bosnia and Herzegovina as actually very competitive and very credible association with very good experts to help them to do the project, which is completely different and new for them. And also we made a huge influence on Canton Sarajevo government, and we built elementary school Gora with actually all those elements. So all these projects are in the pipeline. Next. Which is very important, and in this project in Bosnia and Herzegovina, beside the Green Building Council Bosnia and Herzegovina, we also have partners as Enova, consultant and engineers company, and also people in need, originally from Czech Republic, but they also have office in Bosnia and Herzegovina. All of us together, we already for many years working with different municipalities and different projects implementing in the municipalities. So we build credibility and trust and partnership with many of those municipalities. What we did, we actually continue to work with them, presenting the smarter project, and then we actually realized that many of the mayors of this municipality start to understand the benefit of this project in this social housing projects or public projects that they have with the education buildings, public buildings. And then with this joint work and the building trust together about public projects, we actually approach to those municipalities, and we already sign two memorandum of cooperation. Next. With the municipality Maglaj and municipality Sokolac. In the pipeline, we already have municipality Lukovac, but also we were being in Green Building Council. We were members of the consortium to work on the GCAP, Green Capital Action Plan project in Zenica. So that now they recognize this project as a smarter project, and they approached us asking us actually to help them in some future project. Same with Canton Sarajevo, they're also working on GCAP. So all of these partners together actually are helping in Bosnia and Herzegovina, besides direct contract agreement that we have about green certification, that we could also use the promotion channels with the municipalities to work with them now, but also in the future to plan how to work on different projects next. And we also got the new initiatives on the meeting with one of the clients who wants to build a passive house, but we are now working with them to actually recognize the green certification and nearly zero energy house. He actually brought the initiative about insurance company to be involved in our future projects, because he wants to use green certification that we're going to provide him to get better insurance packages to how insure his new house. So the meeting will be next Monday, and thanks to our partners in Smarter Projects, we will be much more ready for this meeting. Next. So those are the partners. Without them, we wouldn't be so strong here, because of course we don't have all the capacities, and we are now making a lot of trainings. But with them, actually, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, once when you say that you are actually partners for Horizon 2020, and that if you don't have the answer on some questions, that you have 17 partners to help you to answer on that question, this is really important in our work in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Next. And I would like to thank all of our partners, and I would like to thank you for today. I'm sure after these workshops, we will be much stronger to break down barriers and creating a better and healthier world, because the prejudices are very much actually the most bigger barrier that we have. But with the trust, partnership and health, we will definitely do a lot in the future. Thank you very much. And now I will give the floor to my colleague Anja Jurczak from Poland Green Building Council.
Thank you, Sanela. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna, and I am project coordinator at Polish Green Building Council. Polish GBC is one of the implementing partners in Smarter Finance for Families. It is our first big international Horizon 2020 project, and we joined it without having an active certification or any relations with financial institutions. So it seemed to be really challenging, and we knew we would have to make a lot of efforts to achieve success. In this short presentation, I will share with you our road to implementing Green Home Green Mortgage program in Poland. First, I want to give you a short introduction of Polish GBC. We are a non-profit organization, and we have been active since 2008. Our mission is to improve the design, construction, and use of buildings in Poland to make sustainable construction a standard. We do it in different fields through a lot of different activities, among them education, events and conferences, task force groups, reports, publications, partnerships, and many more. We have currently over 130 members. We are also part of global network under World Green Building Council. Now I will give you an overview on the situation in Polish building sector. The data presented on the slide are based on the information we gather and publicize in our certified buildings database, and they are from April 2020, so pretty up to date. In Poland, we have currently 845 certified commercial buildings. As you can see on the graphics on the top, we recorded a 30% increase in the number of certified buildings compared to previous year. And what I need to emphasize here is that these figures concern commercial construction, concentrated mainly in large cities, especially in the capital. As you can see on the graphics at the bottom of the slide, the first residential buildings were certified 5 years ago. In 2019, there were 43 residential buildings with BREEAM and HQE certificates, which is the number increased 65% compared to previous year. So we can say we have a perfect timing with Smarter and Polish GBC certification for homes, especially taking into consideration that it will be supported by discounted mortgages, which I believe will attract the potential home buyers. When it comes to the financial market, there are banks that have green loans that concern, for example, renewable energy sources, or mortgages based on energy, but truly green mortgages are also gaining popularity. Currently, there are 5 banks that offer green mortgages. You can see them mentioned on the slide. These are Crédit Agricole, ING, PKO, Bosch Bank, BNP Paribas. In majority, as I mentioned, they are based on energy demand requirements only, not taking into consideration other aspects of sustainable buildings, which are very hard to determine without specific framework, not to mention renovation loans as well. So we don't really consider these mortgage offers based on energy requirements truly green, and we always emphasize that when we talk to banks. Of course, this focus on energy only will change, especially in the context of the EU taxonomy that has recently appeared and that will regulate which activities can be qualified as green and be eligible for green financing. And this will help to avoid the greenwashing, and at the same time, it will be a sort of indicator for banking institutions. There are currently 2 banks, the Bank of Environmental Protection, which specializes in supporting activities that contribute to environmental protection, and BNP Paribas, that offer green mortgages, which can be obtained not only based on energy criteria, but also for certified residential buildings. From the very beginning, Smarter seemed very interesting, especially in terms of the objectives that can be achieved by establishing partnerships between different stakeholders from such different industries whose interests appear to be divergent. In Smarter project, recognizing a common objective, which is climate protection in the first place, with other benefits for each of the stakeholders, and setting partnerships are the clue to success. There was also the success of the Home Green Mortgage Program in Romania, which was a good prognosis for Smarter success in other countries. But in Polish GBC, we had to start the works from the ground, since we did not have our own active certification system for homes, and those that are available in the market are not adapted enough to Polish conditions and are not very popular in terms of residential housing. We had to create our own certification based on research, analysis, and expertise. At the same time, we needed to reach the appropriate persons in financial institutions which offer mortgage loans. So these are the 2 pillars of our work. For creating our multi-criteria certification system, we again focused on partnerships and settled a task force group made of specialists with different fields of expertise. These were architects, solution providers, assessors, and engineers. The group worked for 5 months, and this gave us a very broad view of what a Polish certification for homes should look like, thanks to the exchange of experience and best practices and views on different aspects. Apart from the task group, of course, we had to do the research analysis. We took part in different webinars and events to learn and to get as much as possible knowledge to build up the potential of our certification. We will officially launch it in 5 days on 20th of October, and hope we will have our first investment to be certified soon. At the same time, when we were working on certification, we were also trying to reach developers and banks. It was very difficult, given that at the beginning of the project, we had no product we could offer. Smarter's assumption was to start reaching developers and banks after having all the necessary tools and brochures, and we worked on it for a pretty long time. But in Polish GBC, we decided to approach banks and developers at the very beginning, building only on the information we had at the beginning of the Green Home, Green Mortgage Program and Smarter Project, just to show them our presence, to present what we will be doing, present our vision and idea for the implementation of the program in Poland. So in September last year, we started our first talks with Polish Association of Developers regarding our potential partnership. And later we were giving them updates on our works on the certification. We managed to finalize the cooperation by signing the agreement this May. And I must say that the Association of Developers is very familiar with the changing legislation, the EU climate targets, and they also want to take action and to participate in the program. So this official partnership is very beneficial. We had a chance to present our certification widely during association's webinar for their members and partner banks. We made different publications in mainstream press. We had straight after this meeting another meeting with banks that participated in the mentioned webinar. And this partnership places both parties as reliable and trustworthy professional organizations. When it comes to financial institutions, it is a clear sign that the certification we want them to benefit is reliable and has a potential to expand on the residential construction market. As early as May, it seemed that it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to get banks to join the Green Home, Green Mortgage Program. With the pandemic and the banks adapting their offer to the crisis situation of their actual customers and potential borrowers, Green Home, Green Mortgage programs seem to be last on the priority list. But we approached the banks again at the end of June, starting some deeper talks on potential collaboration, and we are in advanced stage with 2 banks working out a cooperation agreement. It is also worth mentioning that the EU taxonomy, which has recently appeared, also makes banks more interested in such initiatives as ours. All the things we have achieved up till now wouldn't be possible also without extensive promotion, communication about the certification, but especially about the partnerships we managed to settle. I hope that by the end of the project in May 21, we will achieve all the goals, and after the project is finished, we will be able to build up on those achievements and develop the Green Home, Green Mortgage program in Poland. Thank you. Back to you, Camilo.
Great, Anja, thank you very much. Good luck with this upcoming official launch. And thank you all the panelists for these very interesting presentations. We did receive several questions. We have a short time for our session now, so we'll just start right over with some general questions. I will start maybe addressing to Stephen with this question that asks is if the certified projects for a smarter project are systematically passive house standard level or higher than building code, and maybe just couple this question with if you can comment on different certification approaches in different participating countries. Stephen.
Sure, thanks. So definitely they all must achieve code across all countries. I can speak about the Romania program, and maybe I should have clarified in my presentation that, as you've heard from Laura, Sanella, and Anna, that we all have certifications that support the program, but they're all different in each country. And that's by design. We want them to have base level of sustainability performance, but at the same time, a recognition that environments, regional climates, building approaches, etc., national laws are different. So what we asked for in Romania was that the energy performance certificate be used, but that the top level grade of A in the certificate should be exceeded by 30%. And that was before the NZEB requirements, which are now coming into force. And as they come into force in just a couple months now, that will be the minimum standard. You must achieve that on the energy side. Then you get more points in the certification if you exceed that. So definitely for sure it achieves code, and we will, the taxonomy itself is very interesting, is that depending on the construction type and the country or the state of the market, they're looking for example, the top 15% of energy performant buildings. So this is definitely something that's designed to be the most ambitious projects. And I showed you in the example a 7% construction bump. And there was a calculation done a few years ago that said if you have 15% construction increase, or up to 25%, you can build living building challenge buildings. And for those who know that standard, that's a net positive energy building, including the plug load. You have to collect and process all water and wastewater on site. In short, it's really the Olympics of building, of green buildings. So I'm very confident that by using finance and also passing along this discounted finance, that this will enable the design and construction budgets to easily achieve the NZEB requirements in all countries. The biggest issue is we have to think differently about the total cost of ownership rather than the initial investment cost. The other thing I'll say, another big part of our project with the certifications is, yes, we want them to all be locally relevant, but we also need to ensure that all of the certifications meet the minimum requirements in, for example, the EU taxonomy. And that is because obviously the banking industry, and particularly international investors working across multiple markets, they want to be able to know with relatively limited administrative effort that all the projects are compliant. So that's something, so we're looking to set sort of a minimum condition that each of our partners in this project must achieve in order to be included in that definition of green finance. So I hope that answered the question.
Yes, that's clarifying. And maybe just see if you can also, Stephen, address this question about low interest rates that can be seen, how this affect the program.
Great question. I mean, so as the interest rates approach zero in many countries, and obviously it's usually, even if the national rate is set at zero, the mortgage rate's a bit higher, but as it gets lower and lower, it gets more difficult for a bank to offer a significant discount. And at face value, it might appear that this would make it more difficult to have a program based on a discounted rate, but there's really two factors. One is that through our program, the discounted rate is a nice to have, but it has not been the sole focus of our initiative that says this is all about a discounted mortgage. The certification also is very important, the signaling to the market that the home you're about to buy is much better than the other homes. That's always been a very important part of all of this. And on the other side, if we think about what is an interest rate, it's the cost of borrowing money that you can use today to build something that will provide benefits in the future. So as that interest rate falls, it makes all of the cost of investing in construction or design and construction budgets early in the process, it makes it cheaper. So this is really a fantastic thing for sustainability in general. If we need to do, for example, a solar feasibility study, and we need to invest more in competent workforce to build structures that are passive house or near passive house level of quality as far as lack of thermal bridges, etc. All of that takes money, but the money has gotten cheaper. And so it's basically really a fantastic thing for sustainability that we live in a world of low interest rates. So I don't see this as a barrier at all. And I also tried to emphasize that the discount could be less than what we achieved in our program and still be very viable for all of the stakeholders, the investors, the homeowners, the banks, etc.
Okay, good point. Thank you. I will address a more detailed question now to Laura. If you please can comment on the green supporting factor you mentioned. Is this something that all banks will take on, and if so, when?
No, there's a lot of discussion about this supporting factor. So it's as you can see, the European Mortgage Federation in their initiative, they believe that if you can make the business case that these mortgages on energy efficient homes really are lower risk, that they're a higher asset value, that the owners of the homes have basically more free cash because they've lower energy bills and lower other monthly costs, then they can they're less likely to default on their loans. So basically the business case there is that these are better assets on a bank balance sheet, and that central bankers should be encouraging banks to have these assets on their balance sheets by giving this green supporting factor. So there already is in European banking regulation an SME supporting factor to support small to medium enterprises. So it's a concept that has been used before. I suppose it's a political proposition really, and you can see that the European Commission really finds this a really attractive proposal, that it would just basically make it more profitable for banks to lend for green investments than for any other investment. So make banks more profitable for them, so then they do more of it. And you can definitely see there's a lot of support of the European Commission about it. But then if you look at the response of banks themselves and banking regulators, so all the central banks in Europe, including the European Central Bank, if you look at the discussion that happened then, it's very much it's very much the industry. So all the banks are saying, listen, you shouldn't, there's nothing saying that green assets are necessarily less risky, because you have to remember that the idea of the green supporting factor would be that it would be there for any green lending in line with for economic activities that are in line with the European Sustainable Taxonomy. So it's not just for green homes that are certified. So, there's been a lot of debate, and banks are basically saying, and central bankers are saying, listen, unless you can show that these loans are less risky, then banks should continue to need to have the same amount of capital as they would for other loans. So what's basically happened is that it's been kicked to touch. The European Banking Authority, the EBA, is researching the evidence. They want to just basically pull together the evidence so that that green loans are less risky, and they've put out a timeline of 2025 for that, for having that report ready. So it's been kicked to touch at the moment. The only thing is that some central banks can go ahead themselves and introduce something along those lines. So you've actually seen the Hungarian central bank coming in and introducing basically a green supporting factor for green mortgages in Hungary. So individual central banks can go ahead, but there is a lot of debate across the banking industry, because of course the whole reason for banks having to hold capital is so that they don't all go bust like they did before. So there's definitely debate about it, but definitely there is a lot of support for this proposal in the European Commission. So I don't think it'll go away completely.
Okay, thank you for this clarification. I will address now a question for Sanela, please. A detailed one, if you can please comment, how long did it take for gathering partners, for the gathering partners stage? And a general question for you also, what are your expectations by the end of the project timeline?
Thank you, Camila. It's actually during the years we started with, for example, 10 partners in 2010, especially because I did my PhD research in Technical University in Vienna. So during that time, I really get the information also about international partners. And we did work a lot with the donors, and we start with them. But then by the years, we actually, we did use a lot of promotion and communication channels. And by the years, actually, every year we have more and more partners. I have to say that especially the young people who were on the summer schools with us on the pavilion project, because every summer we have 5 to 7 days of the workshops, learning by doing, where students actually are building the buildings and discussing with the experts and professors about everything, and professionals. Companies start to approach to us to actually present the products or works. So every years we are accomplishing to have more and more partners. And I have to admit and say that I'm very satisfied, and people in Green Building Council team as well, that we don't losing the partners during the years, but having more and more around us. And in this world, we have to be very positive, and that's the reason why we are using that approach, where we are really talking from our heart. We hardly believe, with the full heart, we believe in this green certification project and all other projects that we are working in now in this moment, because all of them are very much related with rural development and also with this health issues. So we trust and we believe in ourselves and our partners as well, like Enova and People in Need in Bosnia, that we will achieve much more. We are now talking with the banks as well, because this is we do have mostly international banks in Bosnia and Herzegovina who are already actually offering this green mortgages in other countries, so they do have experience with that. But we also believe that with some local banks, it will be also possible to develop these programs. And we will actually promote our work, especially with Neymari, but also with other these projects in the pipeline. And we are hoping that we will attract also more clients. And our approach will be also to use the channels of the Association of the Architects, Association of the Engineers, or Engineering Chamber Commerce here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we will definitely use those channels, because now pandemic is quite strong, and we have huge restrictions here to gather and to make the workshops, but we will use another channels to communicate with the people.
Thank you very much. We are reaching the end of our schedule. I will address one last question to Anja, please, because this is quite interesting, the partnership, the agreements you have reached. And there's one question for you about what will the resulting action look like from the PFSD? We can just have some 4 or 5 minutes over the time. Please, Anja.
Polish Association of Developers, I mean, our agreement with Polish Association of Developers is based on the promotion of our certificate among their members, and they have over 100 developers as their members. So the scope is really big, and we are doing a lot of communication and a lot of presentations of the certification and explanations on how it works and how it is incorporated in Green Home Green Mortgage program. We emphasize the participation of banks, and thanks to that, thanks to this cooperation, we managed to reach those developers we wouldn't be able to reach without this cooperation. So that was, we consider it a really big success, because we were noted and we were heard and we were seen on the market, and thanks to that we hope to develop the program. And also as a result of this cooperation, because Polish Association of Developers is very recognized in Poland between banks, so it also opened us doors to banking institutions to have the possibility to present the program and to have further talks about the implementation of the program and about the green mortgage offer. So this opened different doors for us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our panelists. We will be closing now this webinar. I thank you all, the attendees also, and I hope you can also share the word so other people can follow this webinar in podcast, and hope to see you again in this series of webinars. Thank you again, and good luck and good continuation.